The warship Victory moved through the darkness of space like a silent predator. Its metal hull reflected the distant stars as it traveled through the Kepler 442 system. Captain John Blake sat in his command chair, watching the main screen with steady eyes. He had been in space for 20 years, and he knew how to stay calm even when things got strange. The Victory was huge. It carried 2,400 people inside its walls. Engineers worked in the lower decks. Pilots rested in their quarters. Soldiers trained in the combat rooms. Medical staff kept the hospital wings ready. Everyone had a job and everyone did it well. Lieutenant Daniel Carter sat at the navigation console. His fingers moved across the controls as he checked their course. Everything looked normal. They were on a routine patrol, far from Earth, far from any known threats. It should have been a quiet mission. Then the sensors beeped. Daniel leaned forward. His screen showed something near the fourth planet. Something big. Something that should not be there. "Captain Blake, we have a contact," Daniel said. His voice stayed level, but his heart beat faster. "Unknown vessel. Sizes much larger than ours." Blake stood up from his chair. "Show me." The main screen changed. It now showed a ship that looked nothing like any human design. The alien vessel was enormous, easily twice the size of the Victory. Its shape was smooth and curved, like it had been grown instead of built. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. Commander Lisa Martinez moved to stand next to Blake. She was his second in command, and she had seen many strange things in her career. But this was different. "This was first contact. Alert all stations," Blake ordered. "Battle stations, but do not power weapons yet. I want everyone ready, but I do not want to look hostile." Throughout the Victory, alarm bells rang. Soldiers ran to their posts. Engineers secured the reactor rooms. Pilots climbed into their small fighter craft, waiting for launch orders. Dr. Amanda Ross checked her medical bay, making sure everything was ready in case anyone got hurt. Ensign Kevin Williams sat at the communication station. He was young, only 24 years old, and this was his first deep space mission. His hands shook slightly as he prepared to send a message. "Hail them," Blake said. "Standard first contact protocols. Let them know we are peaceful but ready to defend ourselves." Kevin sent the message on all frequencies. Mathematical patterns, prime numbers, simple images showing Earth and humanity, the universal language of intelligence. He waited for a response. Nothing came back. The alien ship just sat there in space, silent and watching. Minutes passed. The crew of the Victory waited, tense and ready. Then something happened. A beam of light shot out from the alien vessel. It was not a weapon. It was something else. The beam touched the Victory and spread across its hull like water. It moved slowly from the front of the ship to the back, passing through walls as if they were not there. "They are scanning us," Lisa said. She watched her tactical screen as the beam passed through different sections of the ship. "It is incredibly detailed. They are looking at everything." Blake felt a chill run down his spine. The scan was invasive. It felt wrong, like someone was looking through his personal belongings. But he kept his face calm. "Can we block it?" he asked. Lisa shook her head. "It is passing through our shields like they are not even there. Whatever technology they are using, it is far beyond ours." The scan continued for 5 long minutes. It examined every part of the Victory. It looked at the engines. It studied the weapons. It analyzed the living quarters. It recorded everything about the ship and probably learned everything about the humans inside it. When the scan finally ended, the beam disappeared. The alien ship remained still and silent. Kevin tried to hail them again. Still no response. "What now, Captain?" Lisa asked. Blake thought carefully. "We wait, we watch, and we stay ready. If they wanted to attack us, they could have done it already. They are studying us for some reason." Inside the alien ship, things were very different. The Zephyrin were not warriors. They were explorers and scientists. For 50,000 years, they had traveled through space, meeting new species and learning about the galaxy. They had seen thousands of different civilizations. They had encountered beings of pure energy and creatures that lived in the hearts of stars. They thought they had seen everything. They were wrong. Science Director Velkara stood in the analysis room staring at the data from the scan. Her 3 eyes were wide with shock. Her silver skin had turned pale. Around her, other Zephyron scientists looked at their screens with similar expressions of horror. "This cannot be correct," one scientist said. "Run the scan again." "We do not need to run it again," Velkara said quietly. The data is accurate. I have checked it 3 times. She pulled up images on the main display. The human warship appeared in perfect detail. Every weapon was labeled. Every defensive system was highlighted. The information was complete and terrifying. The ship carried nuclear weapons. Hundreds of them, each one powerful enough to destroy a city. But that was just the beginning. It also had antimatter torpedoes that could crack open a moon, railguns that could fire metal slugs at speeds close to light itself, plasma cannons that burned hotter than the surface of a sun. The armor was strange too. It was made of layers, each layer designed to stop a different type of attack. Heat did not melt it. Impacts did not crack it. Energy weapons scattered across its surface without causing damage. But the weapons were not what frightened Velkara the most. It was the design philosophy behind them. Every system had a backup. If the main reactor failed, there were 3 smaller ones that could take over. If the bridge was destroyed, there were 2 other command centers deep inside the ship. If sections of the hull were breached, automatic doors would seal them off and the rest of the ship would keep fighting. The medical bay was enormous, big enough to treat hundreds of wounded at once. The food storage contained enough supplies for 3 years. The ammunition reserves could supply a long war. This ship was not just built to fight. It was built to survive. It was designed by a species that expected the worst and prepared for it. It was the product of a civilization that had refined warfare into a science. How long have they been in space? A young scientist asked. Velkara checked the data. According to their technology level, less than 400 of their years. The room fell silent. The Zephyron had been spacefaring for 50,000 years, and their ships carried minimal weapons. These humans had been in space for only 400 years, and they had already created weapons that could threaten species far older than them. What kind of world creates such beings? Another scientist whispered. Velkara knew she needed to find out. She activated the long-range communication system and sent a priority message to the Zephyron High Council. The message was simple but urgent. We have encountered a new species. They call themselves humans. They are dangerous beyond anything we have seen before. We need guidance immediately. Back on the Victory, Captain Blake watched the alien ship carefully. It had not moved. It had not communicated. It just sat there silent and mysterious. What are they thinking? Daniel wondered aloud. Blake smiled slightly, though there was no humor in it. If I had to guess, I would say they are probably scared. Lisa looked at him with surprise. Scared of us? But they have the superior technology. Superior scanning technology, Blake corrected. But they saw what we carry. They saw our weapons. They probably saw our whole military history in our computer files. And now they are trying to figure out what kind of species builds ships like this. He was right. The first contact between humans and aliens had just occurred, and the aliens were terrified of what they had found. The Zephyron High Council gathered in their main chamber on the home world. The room was circular and vast, with walls that showed the stars beyond. 50 council members sat in a ring, their silver skin gleaming under soft lights. They had ruled their civilization for thousands of years with wisdom and peace. Today they faced something new. Science Director Velkara stood in the center of the circle. She had traveled from her ship to deliver this report in person. The data was too important to send through regular channels. The council needed to understand exactly what they had found. Show us, the council leader said. Her name was Serana, and she was old even by Zephyron standards. She had seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. Nothing surprised her anymore. Until today, Velkara activated the holographic display. The human warship appeared in the air above them, rotating slowly. Every detail was visible. Every weapon was marked. The council members leaned forward to see better. This is the human vessel called Victory, Velkara began. It is a military ship, one of many in their fleet. They have been spacefaring for less than 400 of their years. A young council member spoke up. Only 400 years? But their technology appears quite advanced. Their weapons technology is extremely advanced, Velkara corrected. Let me show you. She highlighted different sections of the ship. Nuclear weapons here. Antimatter torpedoes here. Railguns along the spine. Plasma cannons in rotating turrets. Point defense systems covering every angle. The list went on and on. The council members became very quiet. Some looked shocked. Others looked frightened. Serana simply stared at the image with her ancient eyes. We need to understand where this comes from, Serana said finally. begin researching their history, find out what kind of world creates such beings. Velkara had already begun this work. The Zephyrin had been monitoring human radio and television broadcasts for decades. They had collected millions of hours of data. Movies, news programs, documentaries, historical records. Everything humanity had sent into space was archived in Zephyron databases. Now Velkara and her team studied this information with new urgency. What they discovered was worse than they had imagined. Humans came from a planet called Earth. It was a beautiful world with blue oceans and green continents. But it was also a violent world. The Zephyrin learned that humans had evolved not as the strongest species, but as one of many predators competing for survival. Early humans were prey animals. They were hunted by larger, stronger creatures. They survived by being smarter, by working together, by making tools and weapons. This shaped their entire psychology. They learned to see threats everywhere. They learned to prepare for the worst. They learned to fight. The historical records were shocking. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, not occasional conflicts, but constant warfare. Wars over territory, over resources, over religion, over politics. Wars that lasted for years, decades, sometimes centuries. Velkara watched footage of human battles throughout history. Ancient soldiers with swords and shields fighting in massive formations. Medieval knights in armor charging across fields. Modern armies with tanks and aircraft destroying entire cities. The destruction was terrible to watch. But the humans did not just fight with simple weapons. They developed technology specifically designed to kill. Chemical weapons that burned lungs, biological weapons that spread disease, and finally nuclear weapons that could destroy whole cities in an instant. The Zephyron found records of the atomic bombings. They watched as mushroom clouds rose over human cities. They saw the aftermath, the burned bodies, the poisoned land. They learned that humans had actually used these weapons against each other. "This is madness," one researcher said. "They used weapons that poisoned their own planet." "What kind of species does this?" "A desperate species," Velkara answered. "A species that values survival above everything else." The research continued. They learned about human world wars, conflicts so large that entire continents fought against each other. They learned about genocides, the deliberate killing of millions of people. They learned about terrorism, about guerrilla warfare, about cyber attacks. Every method of violence humans had explored. Every way to hurt others they had discovered. And they had written it all down. They had military academies that taught warfare as a science. They had think tanks that studied strategy. They had historians who analyzed every battle in their past to learn lessons for the future. But there was something else in the records. Something that made the picture even more complicated. Humans also created rules for war, treaties that banned certain weapons, laws that protected civilians, agreements that governed the treatment of prisoners. They built international organizations dedicated to preventing conflict. They created a concept called human rights and tried to enforce it globally. This confused the Zephyron greatly. Why would a species build terrible weapons and then create rules limiting their use? Why would warriors agree to protect their enemies? It did not make sense. Velkara thought she understood. The humans were not simply violent. They were practical. They learned from their mistakes. After each terrible war, they tried to prevent the next one. After each atrocity, they created new laws. They knew the cost of violence and they tried to control it. She presented this analysis to the council. The room was silent as they absorbed the information. "So they are not mindless killers," Serana said slowly. "They are intelligent enough to restrain themselves." "Yes," Velkara confirmed, "but that makes them more dangerous, not less. A species that kills without thought is predictable. A species that chooses when to kill is not. We cannot know what will trigger their violence or what will keep them peaceful." Another council member spoke. "What about their culture beyond warfare? What do they value?" Velkara showed more data. Human art was beautiful and diverse. Their music ranged from simple melodies to complex symphonies. Their literature explored deep questions about existence and morality. They built magnificent structures, created advanced science, explored their own world with curiosity and wonder. "They are creative," Velkara said. "They build as well as destroy. They love as well as hate. They are a species of contradictions." The Zephyron also learned about human family structures. Parents cared deeply for their children, often sacrificing everything for them. Humans form strong bonds with friends and loved ones. They had concepts of loyalty, honor, and duty that they took very seriously. This made sense with what they had seen on the Victory. The ship had large medical bays because humans cared about saving their wounded. It had good living quarters because humans needed comfort and community. It had redundant systems because humans refused to abandon their crew members. The Victory was not just a weapon, it was a community, a home for 2,400 people who depended on each other. This explained the fierce defensive capabilities. Humans would fight desperately to protect their own. "What should we do?" the young council member asked. "Should we warn other species about this threat?" Serana considered carefully. "If we declare them a threat, others may attack them. This could start a war that spreads across the galaxy. But if we say nothing and they prove hostile, we will have failed in our duty to protect peaceful species." She looked at Velkara. "Your recommendation?" "We should communicate with them," Velkara said firmly. "We should be honest about what we saw and what we learned. We should offer friendship and see how they respond. If they are truly civilized, they will appreciate honesty. If they are not, we will learn that quickly enough." The council voted. The decision was unanimous. The Zephron would attempt peaceful contact with humanity. They would extend a hand of friendship while keeping their guard up. But first, they needed to prepare. They needed to understand human language and culture better. They needed to craft messages that would not be misunderstood. They needed to be ready for any response, peaceful or hostile. Velkara returned to her ship with new orders. She was to initiate first contact. The future of human-alien relations depended on how well she handled the next few days. She looked at the Victory on her screens. The human warship still waited in the darkness, patient and ready. Inside it, 2,400 humans wondered what the aliens were thinking. Soon they would find out. The silence was about to end and the real first contact would begin. Captain Blake had been awake for 36 hours straight. He sat in his quarters drinking coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. His eyes were tired, but his mind stayed sharp. The alien ship had been silent for 3 days now. No communication. No movement. Just waiting. The crew of the Victory was getting restless. Soldiers could only stay at battle stations for so long before exhaustion took over. Blake had rotated shifts carefully, making sure everyone got rest. But the tension was wearing on all of them. A beep came from his desk. Blake pressed the communication button. "Captain, this is Williams in communications. I think you need to hear this." Blake was on the bridge in 2 minutes. Ensign Kevin Williams sat at his station with headphones on, his face showing excitement and nervousness in equal measure. "What do you have?" Blake asked. "They are sending something," Kevin said. "It started 5 minutes ago. Mathematical patterns, just like we sent them. Prime numbers, geometric sequences. They are trying to establish communication protocols." Commander Lisa Martinez arrived on the bridge. She had been resting, but Blake knew she would want to be here for this. "This is it. First contact for real." Blake nodded. "Kevin, respond with the same patterns. Let us build a common language. Take it slow and be precise." For the next 6 hours, Kevin worked with the Victory's artificial intelligence to establish communication. The process was slow but steady. Mathematical concepts first, then basic physical constants, then simple images and symbols. Gradually, a translation framework began to take shape. The first actual words came through at hour 7. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. "We are Zephron. We explore. We mean peace. We want understanding." Blake carefully composed a response. "We are humans. We defend our people. We seek peace with all species. We will protect what is ours." The reply came back within minutes. "We scanned your vessel. We apologize if offense given. We were unprepared for what we found." Blake and Lisa exchanged glances. The aliens sounded cautious, maybe even afraid. "What did you find that surprised you?" Blake sent back. There was a longer pause this time. Then the response came. "Your weapons. Your defensive systems. Your preparation for conflict. We have never encountered such capabilities in a species so young." Blake thought carefully before responding. "We come from a difficult world. We learned to defend ourselves early, but we also learned to value peace. We have rules for war. We try to prevent conflict when possible. The conversation continued for hours. The Zephron asked many questions. They wanted to understand human history, human culture, human values. Blake answered honestly, sometimes consulting with his crew to make sure the translations were accurate. Dr. Amanda Ross joined them on the bridge. Blake asked her to explain human medical ethics and the value humans placed on life. Kevin Williams helped describe human art and music. Lieutenant Daniel Carter talked about human exploration and curiosity. Lisa handled the military questions. She explained deterrence theory, the idea that strong defenses prevented war. She described the rules of engagement that human soldiers followed. She talked about honor codes and the protection of civilians. The Zephron seemed particularly interested in this contradiction. "You build weapons to avoid using them?" they asked. "Yes," Lisa responded. "We learned this lesson the hard way. We fought terrible wars. Millions died. We decided that being strong enough to win any fight meant we could choose not to fight at all. Peace through strength." This concept seemed difficult for the Zephron to understand. Their species had evolved differently. They had never faced the same survival pressures. War was something they had only observed in other species, never experienced themselves. Blake decided to share more about humanity. He sent recordings of symphony orchestras, showing how humans created beauty with sound. He sent images of paintings and sculptures from throughout human history. He sent footage of humans helping each other during disasters, showing their capacity for cooperation and compassion. The Zephron studied everything carefully. After a long pause, they sent a new message. "We understand better now. You are builders and destroyers, healers and warriors. You contain many contradictions." "That is accurate," Blake replied. "We are complex. We are capable of great kindness and great cruelty. We try to choose kindness, but we stay ready for cruelty if needed." Then came a message that changed everything. "We must share important information. You are not alone in the galaxy. There are many species. Some are peaceful like us, some are not. We can introduce you to the galactic community, but you must understand the risks." Blake felt his heart rate increase. A galactic community. Humanity had wondered for centuries if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. "Tell us more," he sent. The Zephron explained. There were 47 known spacefaring species. Most were peaceful traders and explorers. Some were aggressive and territorial. A few were actively hostile. The galaxy had a delicate political balance, and the introduction of a new species always disrupted it. "Your military capabilities will attract attention," the Zephron warned. "Some will want to befriend you for protection. Some will want to test you. Some will see you as a threat that must be eliminated before you become too powerful." Blake understood. Humanity was about to step onto a much larger stage. Everything they did from now on would have consequences beyond Earth and its colonies. "We need to speak with our government," Blake sent. "This decision is too big for one ship captain to make." "We expected this," the Zephron replied. "We will wait. But we advise you to decide quickly. Other species already know about your presence. We have shared the information with the Galactic Council as protocol requires. They will send observers soon." Blake immediately composed a message for Earth. He included everything: the scan, the Zephron analysis, the communication, the warning about other species. He marked it with the highest priority and sent it through the fastest channels available. The message would take 3 weeks to reach Earth. Then there would be debates, discussions, decisions. Then another 3 weeks for the reply to reach the victory. 6 weeks minimum before they had guidance. In the meantime, Blake continued talking with the Zephron. He learned about their civilization, their 50,000 years of history, their philosophy of peaceful exploration. They seemed genuinely kind, genuinely interested in understanding rather than judging. Science Director Velkara became Blake's primary contact. She answered his questions patiently, explaining galactic politics, technology differences, cultural variations among species. Blake found himself liking her, despite never having seen what she looked like. She also warned him about specific species to watch out for. The Krill Dominion was particularly concerning. They were a militaristic species that dominated their region of space through force. They respected strength, but also felt threatened by potential rivals. The Krill will test you, Velcara predicted. They will want to know if your weapons are as dangerous as they appear. Be prepared for provocation. Blake thanked her for the warning. He increased security protocols and made sure all combat units stayed sharp. If the Krill came looking for a fight, they would find the humans ready. Lisa approached him later that day. She had been thinking about strategy. Captain, we need to consider how we present ourselves to this galactic community. Do we emphasize our peaceful intentions or our military strength? Both, Blake said after consideration. We should be honest about what we are. We are peaceful by choice, not by weakness. We prefer negotiation, but we are excellent at war. Any species that understands that will respect us. Any species that does not understand that will learn. Lisa nodded. She agreed with this approach. Humanity should not apologize for being survivors. The 6 weeks passed slowly. The Victory maintained its position near the Zephron ship. The two vessels orbited each other like dancers, close but not touching. Communication continued daily. Both species learned about each other, building understanding and perhaps the beginning of friendship. When the reply from Earth finally arrived, Blake read it with the senior staff gathered around him. The message was clear and decisive. Humanity would meet the galactic community. They would be honest about their capabilities and their history. They would seek peaceful relations but would not compromise their security. And they would send a delegation to represent Earth at the galactic meeting place. Blake was ordered to accompany that delegation. He would be humanity's voice in a room full of aliens, speaking for his entire species. No pressure, Kevin joked nervously. Blake smiled, despite the weight of responsibility. We have faced worse. We are humans, we adapt, we survive, we will handle this too. Nexus Prime was unlike anything Blake had ever seen. The space station floated between star systems, a massive structure built by dozens of different species over thousands of years. It looked like a city made of metal and light, with sections that rotated slowly to create artificial gravity. The human delegation arrived in a diplomatic shuttle. Besides Blake, there was Ambassador Patricia Hughes, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and decades of negotiation experience. General Frank Morrison came too, a tall man with gray hair who had fought in 3 major conflicts. Dr. Ross completed the team, representing the scientific community. As their shuttle docked, Blake saw other vessels from species he had never imagined. Some ships were organic, grown rather than built. Others were geometric and precise. A few seemed to shift shape as he watched. The diversity was overwhelming. A Zephron guide met them at the airlock. It was Blake's first time seeing one in person. Velcara stood about his height with silver skin that shimmered under the station lights. She had 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on her face and moved with fluid grace. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," she said through a translation device. "The other delegates are gathering in the main council chamber. I must warn you, many are very curious about humans. Some are nervous. Please do not take offense at stares or questions." "We understand," Ambassador Hughes replied. "We are curious about them too." They walked through corridors filled with aliens. Blake tried not to stare, but it was difficult. Some species were insectoid with multiple legs and compound eyes. Others were gas clouds contained in mechanical suits. Some looked almost human, while others were so alien that Blake could not tell which end was the head. Many stopped to look at the humans. Blake heard whispers through translation devices. "Those are the warriors. They look so ordinary. How can they be so dangerous?" The attention made him uncomfortable, but he kept his face neutral and professional. The council chamber was enormous, a circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. Each species had their own section with environmental controls suited to their needs. Some areas were filled with water. Others had different atmospheric pressures or temperatures. The human delegation was shown to their seats. The room gradually filled as representatives from 47 different species took their places. The noise of many languages created a constant background hum until the meeting began. A tall being with blue skin and 4 arms called the session to order. This was the council mediator, chosen for neutrality and fairness. The chamber fell silent. "We gather to welcome a new species to our community," the mediator announced. The humans have achieved interstellar travel and have made contact with the Zephron. As is our custom, they will present themselves to this council. Ambassador Hughes stood and walked to the central platform. She had prepared her speech carefully, choosing every word to represent humanity accurately. "Thank you for this opportunity," she began. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We are young compared to many of you, having been spacefaring for less than 400 years, but we have learned much in that short time." She paused, looking around the chamber. "Our history is not peaceful. We evolved on a world where survival required strength. We fought wars for thousands of years. We developed terrible weapons. We hurt our own planet and each other." The chamber was completely silent. Every species listened carefully. "But we also learned," Hughes continued. "We learned that war has costs too high to pay. We learned to cooperate across our world. We formed a single government that represents all humans. We created laws to protect the weak and limit violence. We are still learning, still growing, but we are trying to be better than our past." She activated a holographic display showing Earth. "Our planet is beautiful. It is worth protecting. We build strong defenses not because we seek conquest, but because we refuse to be conquered. We carry weapons because we know the galaxy might not be entirely peaceful, but we prefer negotiation to conflict. We offer friendship to those who offer it to us." General Morrison took over next. He displayed images of the Victory and other human warships. "I will not hide what we are capable of," he said. "Our military technology is advanced. We have weapons that can destroy planets, but we also have strict rules about when and how we use force." He explained the concept of proportional response. "If attacked, we respond with equal force, not overwhelming destruction. We protect civilians even in war. We treat prisoners with dignity. We follow international laws that govern conflict. Our soldiers are trained in discipline and restraint as much as combat." The presentations continued. Dr. Ross talked about human science and medicine. She explained how humans valued life and worked to preserve it. She shared discoveries in biology, physics, and chemistry that humans were proud of. Blake spoke last. He talked about human culture, showing art and music from different periods and regions. He explained human diversity, how they came in many colors and spoke many languages but worked to respect those differences. He talked about human dreams of exploring the galaxy and meeting other intelligent life. When the presentations ended, the council began asking questions. Many were friendly. The Zephron voiced support. Several trading species asked about economic partnerships. Small species that faced threats from larger neighbors quietly expressed interest in human protection agreements. But not everyone was friendly. A massive figure stood in one section of the chamber. This was War Leader Thrak of the Krill Dominion. His species was large and muscular, covered in thick scales that looked like armor. His voice was deep and aggressive. "You speak of peace while carrying weapons of war," Thrak said. "You claim to value life while perfecting ways to end it. Your words contradict your actions. How can we trust you?" General Morrison stood to respond. His voice was calm but firm. "We carry weapons because threats exist. You yourself lead a military dominion, War Leader. You understand the need for strength. The difference is that we use our strength to deter conflict, not to start it." Thrak snorted. "Words are easy. Actions reveal truth. Perhaps we should test your peaceful intentions. Would you disarm to prove your sincerity?" Morrison met his gaze steadily. "We will never disarm while threats exist in the galaxy, but we will never strike first without cause. We will honor every treaty we sign. We will protect ourselves and our allies with absolute commitment. If that bothers you, perhaps you should examine why." Tension filled the chamber. Several species shifted nervously. The mediator stepped forward quickly. "This is a meeting of welcome, not confrontation. War Leader Thrak, your concerns are noted. General Morrison, your position is clear. Let us move forward." The rest of the session proceeded more smoothly. Many species asked practical questions about human technology, culture, and intentions. The human delegation answered honestly and carefully. By the end, Blake felt they had made a good impression on most of the council, but the confrontation with Thrak worried him. The Krill clearly saw humans as potential rivals or threats. That would cause problems eventually. After the formal session ended, several species approached the humans privately. The Zephron offered a formal alliance, promising technology sharing and mutual defense. Ambassador Hughes accepted, knowing Earth would approve. The Meridian Collective, a group of trading species, proposed economic partnerships. They recognized that human industrial capacity could benefit everyone. Hughes negotiated terms carefully, protecting human interest while building goodwill. 3 small species quietly asked about protection agreements. They had been bullied by the krill for years and saw humans as potential defenders. Morrison said Earth would consider such requests but made no immediate promises. That evening, the delegation gathered in their quarters. They reviewed the day's events and planned their next moves. "I think we did well," Hughes said. "We were honest about our capabilities without being threatening. Most species seem to respect that." "Except the krill," Morrison added. "They are going to be a problem." "They see us as competition," Blake agreed. "Thrak challenged us publicly. He wanted to make us look weak or aggressive. When we refused both, he got angry. He will try again." Dr. Ross had been quiet during the discussion. Now she spoke up. "But we also made friends today. Real friends. The Zephron believe in us. The traders see opportunity. The small species see hope. That matters more than one bully." She was right. Humanity had taken its first real steps into the galactic community. They had shown their strength and their restraint. They had made allies and identified enemies. The future was uncertain, but they had made a good start. Blake looked out the window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Earth waited for their report. The human colonies watched nervously, and probably the krill plotted their next move. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. They were survivors. They always had been. The emergency alarm woke him. He was dressed and on the bridge within 3 minutes, his mind already working through possible scenarios. Commander Lisa Martinez was already there, looking at the tactical display with a grim expression. "Captain, we have a situation. The colony at New Harmony is under threat." New Harmony was a peaceful human settlement on the edge of human space. 50,000 civilians lived there. The call came in at 300 hours ship time. Blake was asleep in his quarters when steely families who wanted a quiet life away from the crowded inner worlds. It had minimal defenses, just a few orbital platforms for asteroid deflection. "Show me," Blake ordered. The main screen lit up with an image of New Harmony's star system. 6 krill warships sat in orbit around the colony world, their weapons powered but not yet firing. "They arrived 2 hours ago," Lisa explained. "They broadcast a message demanding that we evacuate the system within 48 hours or face military action. They claim the system belongs to krill territory." Blake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "That system has been human territory for 15 years.
They are lying."
"This is a test." Lieutenant Daniel Carter turned from his console. "Earth Command is already aware. Admiral Helen Brooks is taking personal command of a response fleet. 15 ships including us. We are ordered to New Harmony immediately." Blake nodded. "Plot the fastest course. Battle stations. I want every system ready before we arrive." The Victory jumped to faster than light travel. Throughout the ship, soldiers checked their weapons. Engineers ran diagnostics on all systems. Pilots climbed into their fighters. Dr. Ross prepared the medical bay for possible casualties, though she prayed there would be none. The journey took 30 hours. When they arrived, Blake saw the other human ships already taking defensive positions around New Harmony. The flagship was the Defiant, a massive battleship that dwarfed even the Victory. Admiral Brooks commanded from its bridge. "All human ships, this is Admiral Brooks," came the voice over communications. "We form a defensive perimeter around the colony. No one fires unless fired upon. Our mission is to protect our people, not to start a war. But if they attack, we will respond with full force." The human fleet moved into position. 15 warships formed a wall between the krill vessels and the colony world. On New Harmony's surface, colonists watched the sky nervously. They knew humanity would defend them. They just hoped it would not come to violence. Admiral Brooks sent a message to the krill commander, Fleet Leader Zakor. "You have entered human territory without authorization. You have threatened civilians. You have 12 hours to withdraw peacefully. If you do not leave, we will consider your presence an act of war." The response came quickly. Zakor's voice was harsh and mocking. "You are outnumbered. Your technology is inferior. Leave now and we will let you go." "Stay and we will destroy you," Brooks replied calmly. "You scanned our ships at the council meeting. You know what we carry. You know we can hurt you badly even if you win. Ask yourself if proving a point is worth the cost. Leave peacefully and there will be no consequences. Attack us and you will regret it. Silence followed. The two fleets faced each other across space. Hours passed with no movement from either side. On the Victory, Blake watched the Krill ships carefully. They had not closed the distance for optimal firing positions. They had not deployed fighters. They were trying to look threatening without committing to actual combat. They are hesitating, Lisa observed. They expected us to back down or run away. They did not expect us to stand and fight, Blake agreed. The Krill had probably bullied dozens of species this way. Show up with overwhelming force, make threats, watch the victims flee. It usually worked. But humans did not flee from threats. They faced them. 8 hours passed. The tension was almost unbearable. Every sensor operator watched for signs of weapon activation. Every gunner kept their targeting systems locked. Every pilot sat ready to launch. Then something unexpected happened. A message came through from Nexus Prime. The Galactic Council had issued a statement. The Zephron, the Meridian Collective, and 3 other species jointly condemned the Krill aggression. They called it a violation of established territorial laws. They demanded immediate Krill withdrawal. More importantly, the Meridian Collective announced economic sanctions. Any Krill vessels entering Meridian space would be refused trade and refueling. For a military fleet, that was a serious threat. Blake smiled slightly. Humanity had made friends at the council meeting. Now those friends were supporting them. The Krill suddenly found themselves isolated, facing not just human weapons but also diplomatic and economic consequences. 10 hours into the standoff, Blake received a private message from Velkara. She was still at Nexus Prime, coordinating the diplomatic response. The Krill are backing down. They are preparing to leave but want to save face. They will claim this was a navigation error or a training exercise. Let them have their excuse, Blake replied, as long as they leave our space and do not come back. At 11 hours and 30 minutes, Fleet Leader Zakor broadcast a new message. Due to a misunderstanding in territorial boundaries, the Krill fleet will withdraw from this system. This was a training exercise to test response times. We meant no actual threat. Nobody believed the excuse, but it gave the Krill a way to retreat without admitting defeat. The 6 Krill warships slowly turned and jumped to faster-than-light travel, disappearing from the system. On the Victory, the crew erupted in cheers. They had faced down a larger force and won without firing a shot. Blake allowed himself a small smile before ordering everyone back to normal duties. Admiral Brooks sent a fleet-wide message. Well done, everyone. You showed discipline and courage. You proved that humans can stand firm against threats. But remember, this will not be the last test. Other species are watching. They are learning what we are made of. She was right. News of the standoff spread quickly through the galactic community. The humans had faced down the Krill Dominion and forced them to retreat. That changed how other species viewed humanity. They were no longer just newcomers with impressive weapons. They were a power that could stand up to established forces. In the weeks that followed, several species requested formal alliances with humanity. Small species wanted protection. Trading species wanted partnerships. Even a few military species expressed interest in mutual defense treaties, recognizing that humans would be valuable allies. The Zephron alliance was formalized with a treaty ceremony at Nexus Prime. Velkara and Ambassador Hughes signed the documents together, creating a bond between 2 very different species. The Zephron would share scientific knowledge. The humans would provide military protection if needed. Both would work together to promote peace. Back on Earth, the government began serious discussions about humanity's role in the galaxy. They could no longer hide behind their youth and inexperience. The galaxy knew about them now. They had responsibilities and opportunities. Blake returned to the Victory after spending several months helping establish diplomatic protocols. He was tired but satisfied. Humanity had passed a major test. They had shown strength without cruelty, determination without aggression. They had proven that their weapons were backed by wisdom. Lisa approached him on the bridge one day. Captain, I have been thinking about what happened. The Krill backed down because we were ready to fight, but also because we had allies. Strength alone is not enough. We need friends too, Blake nodded. That is the lesson we learned. Power without partnership is just intimidation. Partnership without power is just hope. We need both. That is what makes us strong. Dr. Ross joined them, carrying a medical report. She had been treating minor injuries from the stress of the standoff. Nothing serious, but it reminded everyone how close they had come to actual combat. I am glad we did not have to fight, she said quietly. I know we were ready. I know we would have won, but every war has a cost. Better to win without fighting when possible. That is the goal, Blake agreed. We carry weapons so we do not have to use them. We train for war so we can maintain peace. That is who we are. Lieutenant Carter called out from navigation. Captain, we have new orders. Earth wants us to begin a diplomatic tour of allied systems. We are to show the flag and build relationships. Blake smiled. A diplomatic tour on a warship. That was very human. They would visit peaceful species in a vessel designed for war, showing both their strength and their desire for friendship. Set course for our first destination, Blake ordered. Let us show the galaxy what humanity really is. The Victory turned toward the stars, carrying its message of peace backed by power. The crew was ready for whatever came next, confident in their abilities and their values. They were human, and that meant something now. The aliens who had scanned their ship had been right to be cautious, but they had also been right to reach out in friendship. Humanity was dangerous, yes, but they were also worthy allies and honorable opponents. The galaxy was learning that lesson, and humanity was ready to teach it. 20 years had passed since that first encounter with the Zephron. Captain John Blake was now Admiral Blake, though he still thought of himself as a ship captain at heart. He stood on the bridge of the Victory, looking at the stars through the viewport. The ship had been upgraded many times over the years, but its core remained the same. The galaxy had changed dramatically in 2 decades. Humanity was now an established power with colonies across dozens of systems. They had built new ships, trained new crews, and formed lasting friendships with many species. The Zephron Alliance had grown into a coalition of 15 different species working together for peace and mutual protection. Commander Lisa Martinez, now Captain Martinez, commanded her own ship in the fleet. Lieutenant Daniel Carter had become a decorated admiral. Dr. Amanda Ross led a galactic medical research program that included scientists from 10 different species. Even young Kevin Williams had risen through the ranks, now serving as a senior diplomatic advisor. The original crew of the Victory had scattered across the galaxy, but they stayed in touch. They had shared something special, that first contact moment when humanity stepped onto the galactic stage. That experience bonded them forever. Blake received a message from Velkara. She was retiring from active service, moving into an advisory role for the Zephron High Council. She wanted to meet with Blake one last time before stepping back. They met at Nexus Prime in the same council chamber where humans had first presented themselves. The room was quieter now, set up for a private conversation. Velkara looked older, her silver skin showing slight creases that Zephron developed with age. Admiral Blake, she greeted him warmly. Or should I still call you Captain? I know you prefer that title, Blake smiled. From you, Captain, is fine. We have known each other too long for formality. They sat together, 2 old friends looking back on shared history. Velkara activated a holographic display showing the Victory as it had appeared 20 years ago. Do you remember how terrified we were? She asked. When we first scanned your ship and saw what you carried, we thought we had encountered a species of pure violence. Blake nodded. I remember thinking you would attack us or run away. I never expected you to reach out in friendship. We almost did run, Velkara admitted. The council debated for hours. Some wanted to warn the entire galaxy to avoid humans. Others wanted to quarantine your space, but a few of us argued for communication. We believed that any species capable of building rules for war might also be capable of choosing peace. You were right to reach out, Blake said. If you had just fled or attacked, it would have started badly. By talking to us, by being honest about your concerns, you gave us a chance to explain ourselves. Velkara changed the display to show current galactic maps. Human territory was marked in blue, spreading across a significant portion of space. Zephron territory was marked in silver. Allied species showed in green. The Krill Dominion appeared in red, though their territory had not expanded in years. Your species changed the balance of power, Velkara observed. Before humans arrived, the Krill could bully smaller species without consequences. Now there is a counterweight. The weak have protectors. The bullies must think twice. That was never our goal, Blake said. We just wanted to protect ourselves and our friends. I know, Velkara replied. That is why it worked. If you had come seeking power, the galaxy would have united against you. But you came seeking security. That is different. That is understandable. She pulled up another image. It showed a research station jointly run by humans, Zephron, and 3 other species. Scientists from all 5 civilizations worked together, sharing knowledge and making discoveries. "This is what I am most proud of," Velkara said, "not the military alliances or the treaties. This different species working together toward common goals, learning from each other, building something greater than any one species could build alone." Blake agreed completely. The military strength was necessary for security, but the real achievement was the cooperation, the friendships, the shared projects. "What do you think the future holds?" Blake asked. "Will this peace last?" Velkara considered carefully. "Nothing lasts forever. New species will emerge. New conflicts will arise. The Krill still resent the changes. Other powers watch and plan. But I believe the framework we built is strong. The coalition has weathered several challenges already. It can weather more." She looked at Blake directly. "The key is that humans remain true to yourselves. You are warriors who prefer peace. That combination is rare and valuable. If you ever lose that balance, if you become only warriors or only peacemakers, the coalition will weaken." Blake understood. Humanity had to stay complex, had to maintain their contradictions. They had to be strong enough to deter aggression, but wise enough to avoid unnecessary conflict. That balance was not always easy to maintain, but it was essential. Later that day, Blake attended a ceremony at the Galactic Academy. This was a new institution, created to train young beings from allied species in both military and diplomatic arts. Humans taught combat tactics and strategic thinking. Zephron taught meditation and conflict resolution. Other species contributed their own expertise. Blake watched students from a dozen different species training together. A young human practiced hand-to-hand combat with a Krill who had defected from the Dominion. A Zephron student discussed philosophy with a human cadet. They were building friendships that would shape the next generation of galactic relations. One of the instructors approached Blake. She was a human named Sarah Bennett, a veteran soldier who had decided to become a teacher. "Admiral," she said, saluting, "your speech is about to begin." Blake walked to the assembly hall where hundreds of students waited. He stood at the podium and looked at the diverse faces before him. Some had scales, some had fur, some had smooth skin like humans, but all of them watched him with the same expression, eager to learn. 20 years ago, Blake began, the Zephron scanned a human warship. What they saw terrified them. They saw weapons capable of destroying worlds. They saw systems designed for survival under the worst conditions. They saw a species that had refined warfare into an art. He paused, letting the words sink in. But they also saw something else. They saw medical bays larger than weapon stores. They saw rules and protocols designed to limit violence. They saw a species trying to be better than its past. The students listened intently. Blake continued, "What the Zephron learned is what I want you all to remember. Strength without wisdom is just brutality. Wisdom without strength is just hope. You need both. You must be capable of protecting what matters, but wise enough to know when protection requires force and when it requires restraint." A Zephron student raised a hand. "Admiral, how do you know when to fight and when to negotiate?" Blake thought about the question. "That is the hardest decision any leader faces. I can give you principles, not rules. Fight when your people are directly threatened and peaceful options have been exhausted. Fight when the cost of not fighting exceeds the cost of conflict. Fight when honor and duty demand it. But always, always try every other option first." Another student asked about the confrontation with the Krill at New Harmony. "Admiral, were you afraid during that standoff?" Blake answered honestly. "Yes, I was terrified. Every person on my ship was scared. Fear is not weakness. Fear is your body preparing you for danger. The question is what you do with that fear. We used it to stay alert and focused. We did not let it control our decisions. The questions continued for over an hour. Blake answered each one thoughtfully, drawing on his experiences. He talked about specific battles, difficult decisions, moments of doubt. He wanted these students to understand that leadership was not about being perfect. It was about doing your best with imperfect information and limited time. As the session ended, Blake looked around the room once more. These young beings represented the future. They would face challenges he could not imagine. But they would face them together, trained to work across species lines, taught to value both strength and restraint. That evening, Blake returned to the Victory. The ship would be retiring soon, becoming a museum ship to preserve its historical significance. A newer, more advanced vessel would take its place as the Coalition flagship. But for now, Blake wanted one more voyage on the ship that had changed everything. He walked through the corridors, remembering. This was where Kevin Williams had first detected the alien signal. That was the medical bay where Dr. Ross had prepared for casualties that never came. Here was the bridge where he had made the decision to stand firm against the Krill. The Victory had been more than a warship. It had been a statement about humanity. It showed what they were capable of, both in violence and in restraint. It demonstrated their values through its design, powerful but controlled, aggressive but honorable, ready for war but hopeful for peace. Blake stood on the bridge one last time, looking at the command chair where he had sat during that first encounter. He remembered the tension, the uncertainty, the fear that they might start a war through misunderstanding. But they had not started a war. They had started a friendship, and that friendship had grown into an alliance that made the galaxy safer for everyone. The aliens had scanned a human warship and been terrified by what they saw, but they had also been brave enough to reach out. And humans had been wise enough to respond with,